scientists have analyzed different creatures, different creation in the world to make products that we know today. Think about the American spider. Now, most of us, when we see a spider, all we want is out of our house. We don't want anything to do with it. But scientists have actually analyzed the type of adhesive that certain spiders make. Different adhesive depending on the different application on this tiny little creature. Well, how about airplanes, high-speed trains? These are often imitated by the beautiful birds that Jehovah's created in the way that they fly, the way that their beaks are shaped. It truly is amazing in how ones today have imitated Jehovah's creation. Yes, we all can agree imitation does have its benefits. But are all people worthy of imitation? See, we must recognize that it takes balance to be able to know that there's positive and negative results when it comes to our imitating others. So we want to be cautious to know who it is that we are imitating. But remember, too, that imitation is not just knowing about somebody or understanding a historical record about them. No, imitation, as we mentioned earlier, is changing the person you are, the way you think, feel, and act. So there's much more involved. Also, too, imitation means that you're going to draw closer to that individual. So isn't it wise then to imitate Jehovah God and his son Jesus, who have the best qualities for us to imitate? But Jehovah understands we are imperfect. It's hard to match all of those beautiful qualities perfectly. So what has he done? He has given us faithful examples in the Bible for us to be able to learn from and imitate. Take Gideon, for example. Why is Gideon's faith noteworthy? Well, think about the time that he lived in. Yes, Gideon, he was a faithful judge that was appointed by Jehovah and oversaw the judging of the Israelites. So he had a nice privilege. But this time that he lived in was difficult. See, the Midianite nation was constantly persecuting the Israelites. Not just for a few days, few months, but years. They were being persecuted. Now Jehovah selected Gideon for a special assignment. He told him, "You will be my deliverer." Wow. What an honor he must have felt. And so what he did is he immediately acted. He gathered together a large army to go against the Midianite people. In fact, he was able to get 32,000 soldiers to go against the Midianites. Now that's a large number, but was it enough? Well, the Midianites too, they had a large army. In fact, theirs was 135,000. So let me ask you, have you ever felt to be in a situation that just seems too difficult to overcome? The challenges just seem too high? How do you think Gideon felt? For every Israelite soldier, they had to fight against 4 Midianites. That's challenging. But what did Jehovah do next? Let's turn our Bibles to Judges chapter 7. Let's notice verse 3. And let's see what Jehovah instructed Gideon to do next. That's Judges chapter 7 and verse 3. It says there, "Now please announce in the presence of the people, whoever is afraid and trembling, let him return home." So Gideon put them to the test. With that, 22,000 of the people returned home, and 10,000 remained. Wow. Now 10,000 soldiers left to go up against this 135,000. That's for every Israelite soldier, 14 Midianites. Now those odds just got more difficult. But Jehovah wasn't done, was he? Notice verses 4 through 6. It says, "Still Jehovah said to Gideon, there are yet too many people. Have them go down to the water so that I may test them there for you. When I say to you, this one will go with you, he will go with you. But when I say to you, this one will not go along with you, he will not go along." So he took the people down to the water. Then Jehovah said to Gideon, "Separate everyone who laps up the water with his tongue just as a dog laps, from those who bend down on their knees to drink." Now notice this. The number of those lapping up the water, put their hands to their mouth, was 300 men. The rest of the people bent down on their knees to drink. 300 remained. 300 soldiers to go up against the Midianite army of 135,000. How do you think Gideon felt? A little nervous, apprehensive? Or did he keep his faith strong? Now, what if you were a part of that 300? Maybe you should feel a little nervous, worried, concerned. Because notice that Gideon, he doesn't instruct them that they're going to fight. But he actually tells them they're going to do something most peculiar, a little unusual. Let's notice in verse 16. It says, "Then he divided the 300 men into 3 bands and gave all of them horns and large empty jars with torches inside the jars." Okay, you're a trained soldier, you have a sword, a shield, and you know what you're doing. And now Gideon has just told you, no, leave those to the side. You're going to have a jar, a torch, and a horn. Going against every bit of logic, you as a soldier think, how in the world are we going to be able to be successful against the Midianites? But who did they see? Gideon. His faith was so strong. Notice how powerful his words are in the next couple verses in Judges 7, verse 17 and 18. Then he said, that's Gideon, said to them, "Watch me and do exactly what I do. When I come to the edge of the camp, you should do just as I do. When I blow the horn, I and all who are with me, you also must blow the horns all around the camp and shout, 'For Jehovah and for Gideon.'" He made it simple and clear for those 300 men. Do exactly as I do. He told them specifically what instructions to follow. But what if one of those soldiers might have felt, I think I have a little more experience than Gideon. I'm going to go ahead and bring my weapons just in case, because I think he might be mistaken. No, of course not. They didn't do that. And so we likewise today, we look to ones taking the lead and we follow their example. We hear new instructions. How do we respond? Do we humbly submit to the direction we are being given? Well, let's notice what those 300 men did and how it turned out in verses 19, 20, and 21. It says, "Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the start of the middle night watch. Just after the sentries were posted, they blew the horns and smashed the large water jars that were in their hands. So the 3 bands blew the horns and shattered the large jars. They held the torches in their left hands and blew the horns in their right hands, and they called out, 'The sword of Jehovah and of Gideon.' All the while, each man stood in his place all around the camp, and the whole army ran away, shouting as they fled." The result was victory. Impossible odds. 300 men against this 135,000 Midianite army. And they were successful, not with weapons, but with faith, with imitation to Gideon. Now, Gideon's story didn't stop here. In fact, the people were so happy and pleased with him that they actually wanted to make him their king. But again, Gideon set a fine example. Turn over to Judges chapter 8. And let's take note of verse 23 and how Gideon faithfully and humbly responded to them. Judges 8:23 says, "But Gideon said to them, 'I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. Jehovah is the one who will rule over you.'" See, he knew it wasn't anything that he had done that gave them that victory. What a fine example he gave, humbly submitting to Jehovah and giving him all of the proper recognition. See, if we follow examples like Gideon, we too can imitate them, trusting in Jehovah when we feel hopelessly outnumbered. See, all of us here today, we each have a unique challenge, a difficulty that sometimes can feel a little bit too hard to take on. But with Jehovah's help, we can be successful. So, a question for the audience. Do you want stronger faith? Well, let's take note of our theme scripture. It's found in the book of Hebrews. I invite you to turn there with me. That's Hebrews chapter 13. And let's take note of verse 7. Hebrews 13:7 says, Remember those who are taking the lead among you, who have spoken the word of God to you. And as you contemplate how their conduct turns out, here's the point: imitate their faith. Yes, today's program is going to be full of ones that we can learn to imitate, to strengthen our faith. The prophets, the Apostle Paul, those taking the lead in the organization today, and young ones that we can look to imitate their fine example. We're also going to learn that there's a difference between following someone and imitating them. An interesting thought, isn't it? But for now, I invite you to turn out your program. Pull out your program here. And on the inside page, we have the start of our review questions. Let's take note of that very first question. Do you see it there? The question there says, why should we imitate the good example of others? Well, here's our answer. Judges 7:17, just as doing exactly what Gideon did led to victory for Israel, our imitating the example of faithful ones puts us in a position to receive Jehovah's blessing. Brothers and sisters, let us pay close attention to today's program, learning how faithful ones, both past and present, have been able to overcome obstacles, even their own imperfections, and how we too can imitate them in loving Jehovah faithfully, learning how to be stronger faithfully down to the end.